Welcome to another podcast of Presentation Hal. We are podcasting today from Embark Collective here in Tampa, Florida. And with us, we have Bob Hyde.
Good morning.
Good morning, who is the Vice President of Community Impact at Suncoast Credit Union. Now, I'm going to ask you a question because I don't know the answer, and I may sound really stupid for not knowing, but I'm just going to go for it. What is the difference between a credit union and like a regular retail bank?
Oh, that's a great question, and we do get that. It's not a dumb question. We get that.
Thanks.
We get that all the time.
I feel so much better now.
In fact, we do a ton of financial education in the community, and we typically lead with just that. What is the difference between a credit union and a bank? And one of the first things we tell everybody is they're both insured. So a credit union is equally insured as a bank.
My money is safe.
Your money is safe and sound to the exact same limit as the FDIC. And that's kind of the difference, right? All the banks are under a federal regulation called the FDIC, which consumers know well. Credit unions are also under a federal regulator called the National Credit Union Administration, known as the NCUA. And in
so
both,
they're different.
Yes.
Two different organizations to protect money. Why do we need two?
Credit unions are federally or state chartered, but they're all considered not for profit, which means by our charter, whether it's a federal or a state charter, there's both, our profits, if you will, have to go back into products and services for our depositors, which we don't call customers. They're actually considered members because they get the benefit of being an owner. They have a share of the organization. So typically, our deposit rates are going to be a little higher than a bank, and our loan rates are going to be a little lower than a bank.
So can anyone join a credit union? Because why would you go to a regular retail bank that's speculating with your money? Or maybe not, but it's like, oh, let's lend it here and let's trade it over here.
Yeah. So I use the word charters, and all credit unions have a charter which will stipulate who may become a member of that credit union. Some are industry based, some are simply geographically based. So, for example, at Suncoast, we were founded in 1934 as the Hillsborough County Teachers Credit Union. So in 1934, you had to be a Hillsborough County educator in order to become a member. Over time, that expanded to be kind of family of educators, so spouse and children. But, fast forward, 2023, our charter now is a state charter. So anybody who lives, works, worships, or goes to school in the state of Florida can be a Suncoast Credit Union member.
So I could become a Suncoast Credit Union
and
member.
We'd be happy to have you.
Awesome. I mean, that's interesting. So Suncoast started in 1934. Isn't that like the height of the Depression? Am I getting my history right?
Yeah, it's coming out of it, right?
Coming out of it.
The stock market crash was 1929.
Right.
So shortly after that, there was a number of federal programs that were put in place to put people back to work.
Right.
Try to reinstill confidence in the markets.
So was this kind of part of that effort?
Yes.
Kind of came out of that.
Yes. In fact, there's a large number of credit unions that all began in the mid to late 30s.
Oh, wow. I did not know this.
Yeah. So we're having a birthday soon.
Happy birthday. And now you guys are up to like 12.6 billion in assets. It's not chump change.
Yeah. Yes. We're over 17 billion in assets now. So
wow. My information is outdated.
Yeah,
17 billion. Wow.
That's a huge deal for us for a number of reasons.
And it's just the state of Florida.
Yeah, I mean, some people have become members and then have moved, right? So we
do they get to stay and be a member?
They do.
The state, once you're a member.
Once you're a member, you're always a member.
Right.
And students, right? Because we had that
like
go to school.
Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave.
We don't want you to leave. We want to provide products and services. So to that end, we've been doing a lot on our digital front to really build out our digital product and services because not all members are here in Florida anymore.
Well, you don't need to you don't need to physically go to your bank anymore like
No,
I do. I don't even
no,
write checks anymore. I just
no.
do online banking.
Yep. I don't know if you have kids or not, but if put a check in front of the kid and
They don't know what
what,
it is.
they have no idea what to do.
Yeah, like I live in a condo, and when you're moving or doing construction, they're like, well, we need a deposit. Give us a check, and I'm like, I don't have any checks. I'm like, I can e-check you something, and they're
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, I don't physically have checks to give
Yes.
you, so
Yes.
you want? Can I Venmo you? They're
Yep.
like, no.
Exactly. Yep. And then it becomes a discussion of which electronic platform do you prefer.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It's just how that's all evolved. So I want to talk to you. You served in the
I
military.
did.
Thank
I did.
you for your service.
My pleasure.
And would you mind talking about
No,
your
no,
service
no, not
in
at
the Navy?
all. Not at all. I mean, I guess it probably goes back to my family.
Uh huh.
My father had a few brothers, three, that all spent time in the Navy.
So you're a military family through and through.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. So growing up, I always thought that was like a really cool thing to
It
be
is a cool
to
thing.
be in the Navy. I grew up in Connecticut, a state that's on the
Oh, I grew up in
water.
Connecticut.
Did you
Where'd
really?
you? So I grew up in Fairfield. Where'd you grow up?
Branford,
Brantford.
right
Okay.
outside
Yeah,
New Haven.
that's right. That's
Yep,
north. Yep.
not far away at
Mm-hmm.
all. So kind of on the water.
Yep.
Love the
Beautiful
Navy,
town.
and I bought into the whole concept of join the Navy, see the world.
Right.
And I remember specifically, I was walking the halls of my high school, probably as a
Mm-hmm.
senior, and the guidance, the principal, assistant principal, stopped me. He's like, "Hey, like, what are you gonna do for college?" I'm like, "I don't know, but this Navy thing seems really cool. I have zero interest in going to like an institution like the academy. It just wasn't
Right.
for me." So he literally said, "Well, did you explore ROTC?" And I had no idea what he just said. I'm like, "What did
Mm-hmm.
you just say?"
Who? What? Watsy? What? Watsy? Watsy?
Exactly. So he told me, "Go down and see."
Reserve Officers Training Corps.
Yeah.
I knew that. My roommate in
Well
college.
done.
My roommate in college was on ROTC,
Oh, what school was that?
University of Texas.
All right.
Yeah.
Hook 'em
Yep.
horns.
She was in ROTC. Her dad was he was a colonel in the Marines. Actually,
Yeah.
she's pretty hardcore.
They have a big ROTC program there at UT.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So he sent me to go see the guidance counselor, and she explained the Reserve Officer Training Corps. You can apply. You can be eligible for scholarship. They'll pay for school. And I was like, "What? They're gonna pay for school?" So long story short, I did, and they did. So I ended up going to Villanova University, where I understand you
ROTC.
have some
Okay.
friends,
Yep.
on a Navy
Go
ROTC
Wildcats.
scholarship. That's it. Nova Nation.
Nova Nation. Nova. Yeah.
So that began it. So I graduated there. It feels like a lifetime ago,
So
honestly.
you went ROTC. What was your major?
I was a English and history major.
So wow.
Yeah, a
Because
little
that's
bit
like so
unusual.
liberal arts.
They
and you're
typically
going,
want
like,
engineers.
military.
They
Yeah,
typically
that's
want
what I was gonna say. It's
engineers.
like engineering and all that hard
Majority
stuff.
of my classmates were hard sciences. Lots of engineers.
And how did that's interesting. So how did like that liberal arts degree, did it make you a better officer? Did it better prepare you for serving or
Yeah, no, I mean it's a great
what do you think?
question. I mean, I ultimately there's two things that kind of have to happen when you get into the active service. One is you need to understand your people, and the other half is you need to understand your systems.
Right.
So for me, the systems were on the ship, right?
Mhm.
Seamanship, navigation, operations, engineering.
That's all engineering stuff.
And
It's
you don't
machines.
necessarily need to be a mechanical or a civil engineer to understand kind of how the propulsion system of a ship works. But that is a requirement. Once you get on the ship, like you have to become smart in that particular.
So you got another education once you got on that ship.
Absolutely. And that's the system side.
That's a system.
And then regardless of what degree you get, there's the people side, right? You have to learn to become a leader of people. And they start teaching you that in ROTC at college, how to be a good leader of, men and women.
So what are some, if you can summarize it, because we're always learning how to lead people, what do they teach you how to lead? I mean, as part of presentation hell, we're all, building businesses and growing the community of Tampa. Leadership's important.
Yep.
You got to motivate people.
And
so what did they teach you?
Yeah, it's great. It's funny because I can actually reflect back, the things that I did during my 23 years of active service, actually learned during ROTC from my instructors who were active duty lieutenants and whatnot in the Navy. And there's two things that always kind of resonated with me. Number one is take care of your people. You absolutely, positively must take care of your people at all times. And number two, it's simple. It's you must care. and it becomes evident in your job if you care about what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
about your people, about your operations.
Right.
If you don't, your team senses
Well, they
that.
sense it. They sense
Yeah,
authenticity. How do you take care of your people? I mean, the Navy provides them
yeah,
food and shelter. So, as a leader, to motivate them, what do you do to quote take care of them? Because
yeah.
that's a very general thing to say.
Yeah, it sure is. You first of all, you have to know them. You have to know, are they single? Are they married? Do they have a child? Is their spouse working? What are those things that are going to happen to them
Right.
outside of work? What are those influences on them? And then on the job, what do they want to do? Is the job that they're currently doing one that they want to do for the next 2 or 3 years, or do they want to change something immediately? And do they
Right.
have the right resources to help them learn about what that next opportunity is and to prepare for it? So knowing all those things
Right.
professionally and personally about each and every one of your people is huge. So you can be a resource for them.
So you really, in order to take care of somebody, you really have to get to know them, and you have to genuinely care about them, because if you don't, you can't really know them. Therefore, you can't be a leader. Or I should say, you
Yeah,
can't be an effective leader.
100%.
Phonies don't make it
Yeah, 100%.
unless you're in politics. I don't know.
We're gonna need another half an hour for that one or more.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess one story I could give about taking care of people is one of the difficult things about the Navy is that there's a saying about sailors belong on ships and ships belong at sea, which
Right.
which means you're not home, right? You're
Right.
you're gone. And I would always tell the guys, look, there's going to be times when you're not going to want to do what the ship is doing. You're not going to do what I'm asking you to do, but it needs to be done.
Right.
But I can tell you, there's going to come a point in time where you're going to desperately need something from the ship or from me as your leader, and I want to be in a position to be able to say yes to that. So in these times when those issues aren't pressing on you, even though it stinks, you got to do it,
Right.
so that we all can be in a position to say, you know what, this is a time where you need a day, an hour, a few days, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be.
Well, it's all about the ship. It's all about the greater purpose.
It's the mission.
It's
Absolutely.
the mission before the person.
Yeah, and it's a neat thing about the ship too, because even though it's a work environment, first and foremost, it's a combat system, right? So you have your propulsion, you have your
Right.
engineering, you have your operations and your seamanship, and you have your weapons, which are designed to be employed, right? So all the work that goes on, that's first and foremost, is to make the system, the combat system, work. But just like any other job, you have routine administration, you have
Right.
training, you have all that other stuff that has to happen all in this kind of compressed environment.
Right.
So it
Because
can be
you're on a ship.
stressful. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
In each other's faces.
Yep.
So where did you travel? Where did you go?
Oh gosh. So I've had the benefit of living kind of all over the United States, all over the place.
Do you have
East
a
Coast.
favorite? Aside from Tampa.
Tampa's awesome.
Tampa's
Awesome.
awesome.
I dropped my anchor here. We stayed
Right.
here. Right? So this definitely was the best. I'm. It's hard to beat Southern California.
Uh-huh.
Lived in Southern California, in San Diego for a couple of years, but probably a lesser known awesome spot is Charleston, South Carolina. I spent time in Charleston, many years ago, before all the kind of the beachfront now was kind of developed, and
Right.
it was just barren. So you go from downtown Charleston, which had a really cool
It's
kind
really
of
cool. All
environment,
those
very
like
historic.
pastel colored
Yeah, you've been there.
townhouses. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's like yellow and pink and blue and green and yeah.
Yep, all the
really
horse-drawn
cool.
carriages
And the
going down the main
food
street
is
on the water.
fabulous.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. And then you go 15 minutes away, and you're in this like super cool beach area. So super keen on Charleston. Haven't been back in a while though.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a while either. And now
Yeah.
just talking about it, I want to go.
And then of course that's domestically, and then the ship always goes overseas, right? So I've had the kind of the honor really to be able to
Right.
go really all over the world, spend time in many countries,
Do you
places,
have a favorite country?
Well, we lived in Italy for a couple of years, so that's hard to top.
It's hard to top Italy. Everything tastes good in Italy.
Everything tastes good.
Everything
It's
tastes
great.
good in
Yep,
Italy.
the food, the wine. And my oldest son was actually born while we lived there, which was kind of cool.
So does that make him an Italian citizen?
I-
Or
he-
if he was born on an American Air Force base, he's technically born in America.
So
How does that work?
you're right in both times, right? So
Okay.
if you're born in the country of Italy, you are eligible for Italian
Italian.
citizenship.
Mhm.
But because he was born at a naval hospital, sovereign territory. He is a U.S. citizen.
Right.
So we actually elected not to apply for Italian citizenship. So you have to apply. It's not automatically given, but you've earned it.
Right.
I've come to learn you can actually apply retroactively. So for some reason, my son and
if he wants to,
his future business girl doesn't need to become an Italian citizen. He can apply for it. So eligible, but didn't apply for it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, kind of neat.
Hi, this episode of Presentation Hell is brought to you by Presentation Management. It's a new strategy for content management. We manage presentations for global enterprise. Faster, smarter, more compliant presentations for your global enterprise. This is AI presentations of the future. Shuffler delivers it.
So now, how long were you in the service for?
23 years.
23 years.
Full career.
And you retired.
I did.
And how was that transition? Did you know what you wanted to do when you retired? Did you just land the job at Suncoast? What was that transition?
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a story there.
Okay.
And I was super fortunate actually. We knew that we wanted to stay in Tampa. So I got to a point in my military career where it was kind of about a year and a half away from rotating. And my wife and I, we kind of looked around. We were living in Tampa at the time. We had 2 kids, now 4. We had 2 at the time.
Busy.
They were involved in school. We're
Right.
like, why would we leave? Right. And then my whole thing was I never wanted to be in a place I didn't want to be and have the service tell me it's time to separate.
Right.
So we were in a place we loved. I was able to kind of dictate separation on my terms. So we said, let's make the decision. So we did. So we decided to stay in Tampa, which then began kind of my transition process. So I started talking to everybody I knew in the community about networked. I absolutely did. And one of the biggest things actually for me networking was I applied for and was selected to the Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce Leadership Tampa program.
Oh, cool.
That was a great program.
That is a great program.
Sounds like you're familiar with it.
Yes, I am.
Are you a graduate?
No, James. James,
okay.
My co-founding partner,
yes.
my brother, went through it.
Awesome program. So I did Leadership Tampa 2015, and that gave me all kinds of additional kind of networks and contacts and whatnot. And one thing led to another. One of my classmates was a senior executive at Grow Financial Credit Union, not Suncoast. And that was my first job. I transitioned from active service into a enterprise risk management job at Grow Financial.
So what is enterprise risk management? I mean, it sounds kind of obvious, but that's also one of those general terms as well. So
like taking care of your people, right?
Right, like taking care of people. Take care of your people. Okay.
And manage risk.
Yeah, I mean, exactly for enterprises.
Enterprise risk management is a field that actually combines a variety of risks across a business, whether it's financial, whether it's reputational, whether it's operational, whether it's interest rate, and all those different verticals, 7 or 8 buckets, depending on how you divide it.
So all the things that could potentially take down a business.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And you identify them, and then you quantify what that level of risk could be in financial terms.
Right.
And then you look at the controls that you have in place. What are you doing to kind of buy down that risk?
So you did a lot of math.
A lot of math and a lot of talking to business units. Believe it or not, it's a lot more to get to that. It's more qualitative because you got to draw people out of what they're.
How do you draw that out? Then?
Yeah,
that's actually really interesting because most people. People who are there to build a business are there to sell the business. Yeah. So they're always going to put the most positive spin on it, rightfully so. So if you're coming in to talk to them, how do you separate the BS from what's real?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because the first thing is you go in there as a partner, not an enemy. And that was the first thing I had to tell the business units, like, look, we're on the same team, we're playing for the same boss, and hopefully at the end of this process, I can be helpful to you. I can help identify where your contribution to the business is, and probably help you take credit for things you're already doing on the risk management side. And then maybe even add a few additional controls.
You took care of your people. It's true. You're taking care of them. You took the approach of I'm doing this to help you, not like let me turn up, see what's under those rocks.
Yeah, and I think that philosophy helped a lot when you put it in a positive light. That like, look at all the good that you're doing, and then you put a little quantitative on it. Like, here's your financial exposure without any of the work that you're doing. But all these things that you do, which we call controls in the risk world, are buying down that risk. So your value is $3.5 million a year. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it was kind of fun to be able to do that and show the business units kind of how that all comes together. So I learned a little bit about that towards the tail end of my military career as what the military calls an operational planner. And then that skill translated, unbeknownst to me, actually, when I started talking to Grove Financial about this field of enterprise risk. I'm like, wait a minute. We never called it that in the military, but that's very similar skill set.
So as an operational planner in the military, you're evaluating risk.
All those things that can go wrong.
All of things,
making
everything can go wrong.
Making sure you have a
there's
plan.
always something you don't see.
Yep.
That's just human nature.
And then making sure you have a plan B and plan C for how to kind of get yourself out of that situation.
And then you get into it and it's like, all right, plan X, we're making this up right now as we go. Right?
Exactly.
That's just life.
Yep. So I spent a couple years at Grove Financial. Loved it. Awesome, fantastic firm. And then I was lured away by a tech startup firm. So I did that for about a year.
Which tech startup?
I think they're still in business today here in Tampa. It's called Lumina Analytics.
Okay.
So I spent a little less than a year with them and realized tech startup world is not for everybody. It wasn't for me.
So what, I'm curious, what about the tech startup world did you not like? And you can be honest, because it's startups are hard. They're very hard, and they're their own thing.
It was hard.
You're coming from structure in the military to structure at a big bank,
at a financial institution. Lots of structure.
So there's structure.
Exactly. I think what kind of was most difficult for me was building the product as you're selling it. Right. So you sell a finished product, but in the back end, you're not quite there. Right. So you might be 80, 85, 90 or less, depending on the product, and that was really, really difficult for me.
Right.
And then, like you said, coupled with
you got to manage the risk. And if it's not built yet, then you don't know where the elements and the variables are that you need to focus on. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So about a year, and then ended up going back into the risk management world. And that was a job I enjoyed, but I was never passionate about it. And so I talked to the leadership to Suncoast Credit and said, look, I love being out and about. I love being in the community. I love kind of more interpersonal work. And we did a restructuring about a year or so ago, and a position which I'm in now was developed, which was the vice president for community impact. Perfect fit for my skills and my passions, and having done, I guess, reasonably well at enterprise risk for almost 5 years.
So what do you do every day as the vice president of community impact? What's a typical day in the life of Bob?
Yeah, well, it's a balance between being out and about in the community, meeting some of our partners, some of our stakeholders, versus being in the back office.
The partners and stakeholders are basically the depositors, right?
Well, no.
Okay.
We have a couple of different facets to the community impact team. One of the things that we do is community sponsorships. So there's a variety of entities. For example, just the other day, there was a walk run sponsored by the American Cancer Society or Raymond James. So we were one of the sponsors for that. So we have to kind of vet the request. I walked. I think, in my defense, I think it was actually billed as a walk. I don't think run was an option.
I'm not a runner either. I would have walked.
Yes, it was fun. It was really good. But we vet all of those requests for community sponsorships, and there's quite a few of them. That's on the community side, but we also have.
So that almost sounds like advertising.
A little bit.
I grew up on Madison Avenue. I worked in ad agencies, so to me, I'm very cynical. It's all advertising.
So we do have a marketing team, which is separate from us, and those dollars are specifically meant to kind of drive our membership growth.
Right.
On the community side, we have 14 what we call credit union development issues, from homelessness to poverty to hunger to financial education. And we want to make sure our community dollars, where we're partnering with somebody, go towards those.
So you are making the community better.
Issues. Oh, that's what we are. I mean, the credit unions, by our definition, are cooperatives.
Right.
So our
that's awesome.
It's fun.
That's kind of inspiring. It's just it's got to Feels like a bigger purpose than your for-profit bank.
It is. And we also, I do want to mention we have a foundation as well, which
Okay.
that's also part of kind of my daily work.
Tell me about the foundation.
In 1990, we established the Suncoast Credit Union Foundation. And from the get-go, the mission of the foundation was for the health, education, and emotional well-being of children. So anything to do with children, that's from pre-K all the way up through college, falls underneath the purview of our foundation. So we get requests and we vet them every 60 days for some level of support to something that falls in the realm of health, education, emotional well-being of children. Since 1990, we've actually put $45 million back into the community through this foundation.
So you have put $45 million to children, to their health, education, and welfare.
Yeah. And this year alone, we'll do over...
In the state of Florida.
In the state of Florida.
That's awesome.
And this year alone, we'll do over 4 million. It's
That's
fun.
Great.
It's a lot of fun.
That is fun. That's really rewarding. It's like you get to do the financial part, but then you can really see a positive impact.
And we, Suncoast, we fund that internally. Every time somebody swipes a debit or a credit card, we take 2 cents from that transaction and we put it in our foundation. And it's amazing because of our members, right? We're over 1 million members now. There's the scale of that membership times 2 cents for every transaction allows us to put, like I said, this year over 4 million back on the street in support of our children.
Awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So if I wanted to open an account at Suncoast Credit Union, can I go online and apply?
Yes, we have all fully digital options, suncoastcreditunion.com. Open an account. You can read all about. We have a community tab as well.
Excellent.
You can read about. We have a wheel for the foundation. You can select the county you live in, and it'll show you the breakdown of those dollars by county.
Of where it goes back.
Yes, because, if your address is Hillsborough County and my address is Pinellas, when I swipe, my 2 cents go in a bucket for Pinellas.
Goes to Pinellas. So it goes into your backyard.
Exactly. So you can spin the wheel and see how many dollars you put in.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So 22 years in the Navy, you traveled all over the world.
We did.
It's a scary world out there.
Yes.
Did you see any combat?
We were in a number of different types of operations. The 3 that stick out most to me, we were a platform in the Gulf during Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Wow.
And Operation Enduring Freedom, right? One was post-Iraq, one was post-Afghanistan. Another one was during the kind of height of piracy. I think it's about 12 or so years ago. A lot of piracy in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden.
That.
And then we also spent a lot of time in the Eastern Pacific and Western Atlantic doing counter narcotic interdiction, kind of finding drug runners and taking them off the water.
And you were running operations to make sure that the ship got to where it needed to be.
For which?
For any of them.
So counter narcotics, you're looking for the narcotics at sea. You're looking for the small little boats.
Those little boats that have a bunch of drugs hidden in the bow.
Or the submersible submarines, which some of those Southern American countries have. Yep, you're looking for those and you interdict them. And then you you save the people, because oftentimes they're jumping overboard. And you get the actual narcotics. And then ultimately you bring those narcotics back to, name your nation, depending on the flag of the vessel.
So what happens to those people that you catch? Do they get arrested?
It depends on what country they're from. And so we have various diplomatic arrangements between the U.S. and all of your various South American and Central American countries.
Right.
The majority of them, they get repatriated. So we bring them back to their host country, and then it becomes a diplomatic and a legal issue in that country.
In their country. Okay.
Yeah, but there were times we would have some of these, I say drug runners. It's really sad because they're
poor.
It's a job.
It's a job. And if you're hungry, you need a job to put food on your plate for your family, you're going to do it.
So there were stretches of time where we'd be out at sea continuing our narcotic interdiction. We didn't have time to bring them back to, name your country. So we'd have them, a week, 10 days, 2 weeks.
Just hanging out on board on the ship.
Yep, outside on the weather decks. You never let them inside we call the skin of the ship.
Of all the security.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So you have to shelter them. You have to feed them. You have to, provide them health and comfort and everything else and security, because you don't quite know, what's happening. So it's kind of an interesting time. Yeah, so that was our counter narcotics operation. Again, Eastern Atlantic and Western
Wow.
Pacific.
Did you ever meet any pirates?
Yeah. I didn't meet the pirates face to face because at the time of the counter piracy, I was here in Tampa assigned to Central Command,
Okay.
which has an area of responsibility to include the Middle East. My portfolio, I mentioned operational planning was what I did,
Right.
and my portfolio was the maritime environment, which is where all
It's
the piracy
pirates
was
are,
happening.
right.
So it was my team's responsibility to identify how to protect the commercial shipping that was going through these pirate infested areas. So we worked a lot with industry about the best tactics and procedures to kind of harden the commercial vessel.
Right.
At the same time, we worked on a military presence to try to deter the proliferation of the pirates at sea.
That's like that Captain Phillips, that Tom Hanks movie.
I was in Central Command when the Captain Phillips whole situation went down and was in the planning room as we were over Easter weekend, if you recall, when we were planning that operation in conjunction with our special operations teams.
It blows my mind if, okay, so I saw the Hollywood version of it.
Yeah.
Take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But that a few people can just go up to this big ship, climb up, and like take it hostage.
Yeah, and that was
like how do you do that?
Yeah, well, they were pretty good, and drugs help, right?
Yeah.
so the pirates
They were
are
all coked up. They had a lot of energy.
They chew a plant called khat, and it
really what's
yes,
khat?
it's
K-O-T?
KHAT,
Khat,
and
okay.
it's organically grown in the Somali area.
Wow,
and
never
it's
heard
almost
of that
like
one.
it's similar to like an LSD, like a hallucinogenic. And typically they're on it when they're doing
climbing
these pirate
up the side
missions.
of the ship. That's crazy.
And then on the commercial shipping side, they're not military. They're not paid to go fight pirates.
No.
Right. So they have contracts, and their contracts don't talk about bearing arms or firing weapons or fighting pirates.
Right.
So, and that's one of the things that we learned with industry. So ultimately what we ended up getting to was putting the personnel on those commercial ships in what we called like a safe room or a bunker, all the way down in the deepest part of the vessel where the pirates couldn't get in, and from which the commercial crew could change course and speed.
So there's almost like another engine room.
Exactly.
At the very, very deep in the bowels of the ship.
That's what we evolved to.
So they can steer the boat.
Right.
While, all those crazy people are running around.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That makes perfect sense. I mean,
ultimately the pirates want to get possession of the vessel, right? Because then they can go to and they can ransom the vessel, which is how they made their money.
That's amazing. That's wow.
So that was at Central Command when that whole operation went down with Captain Phillips and part of
Central Command. What are you doing while they have all these people hostage on a ship and you're in Central Command?
So that's when you go into your military planning process, right? We have a formal military planning process where you look at all of the options. You start with commander's guidance. What does the commander want to see as an end state? Which in that case would probably be, I want the return of all American hostages. I don't want any American deaths. And how much risk am I willing to take in order to achieve that? So that commander will give you that if it's time sensitive, probably verbally. Best it's written, but sometimes
it's amazing how that is methodically, like mathematically figured out ahead of time, because it's still human life.
Yeah. So it starts the commander's guidance.
No pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure. Just a day in the life.
And then we'll get probably in that case, probably about 20 or 25 kind of planners, all with different levels of expertise.
Right.
Come together, and then we develop our options. Option 1, option 2, option 3. Then we evaluate the risk. We evaluate what resources are available to execute those options. Ultimately, make a recommendation to the commander. This is what we recommend. This is why. This is the timeline. And he'll say yes or no.
God bless the U.S. Navy. I mean, I don't think people realize how much our military services do around the world for safety, just in general.
I'm glad you said that. If I can make a comment on that.
All the stuff behind the scenes that everybody just takes for granted. Go ahead.
On the Navy side, our ship inventory is about 300 ships, 299, 301, depending on the day. On any given day, though, 200 of those vessels will be at sea.
So we only have like 100 that are ready to be deployed.
Well, my
Or
point is
if
those
they
200
are
that are at sea are all over the world. So we've got
s-
sailors on ships, which are considered U.S. sovereign soil,
right,
deployed all over
all
the
over the world.
world, 24/7, 365. So, you know, when you talk about thinking about your servicemen and women, that's just the
Mhm.
Navy side.
Right.
You know, we've got, and every ship is anywhere between, 250 on an aircraft carrier, it could be 5,000 people deployed all over the world, to include today in the Eastern Med, right? A lot of
Right.
operations in Eastern Med in
Right.
support of whatever may come there. But we're, say we, the United States Navy is
Yep.
in the military. They're there ready to respond at a moment's notice.
And it was just Veterans Day
And
2 days ago. So this is perfectly timing.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect timing.
And you have your red shirt on, so thank you for your support.
And thank you for your service, Bob Hyde.